All right, hello everyone. How is everybody today? Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I know this is not our normally scheduled day, but we had to miss yesterday, so we are giving you the extra live stream today. So hopefully everybody is having a great day. Hopefully you got the notifications. We will get into our nail in just a moment. I'm gonna get a nail prepped and ready to go here. And let me make sure I can see the chat so I can see what you guys are up to. And I'm not seeing my chat. Moderators, if you can help me out at all, let me know. And we will see what we can do to find the chat so I can communicate with you guys. All right, hopefully everybody is having a wonderful day. And we'll just take just a second here to jump in and we'll get started. All right, you guys, I got my chat. Woohoo! Today's gonna be a good day. We got everything up and running here, it looks like. I can see the chat, I can see what you guys are up to. So if you guys do have any questions, any comments, feel free to pop those into the chat. I do try to keep an eye on that, but if I miss a question or miss a comment, I apologize. Our moderators are here to help you guys out as well, so they can answer some of your questions also. So feel free to ask your questions, comment, chit chat amongst yourselves. I love to see what you guys are up to in the chat there. And yeah, welcome in everybody. So today we're actually going to be doing a gel nail. I know we've been doing a lot of full cover tips lately, and so today we decided we're gonna go back to some old school sculpting of gel. So I'm gonna start by prepping our nail, and we're gonna start by pushing back that cuticle. Let me readjust here, you guys, just a second. Get some things out of the way. All right, so once again, we'll start by pushing back the cuticles, and I always tell you that whether you got a nail on there or not, you should have all 10 of your nails on there. But make sure that you are going through and pushing back all of the cuticles. Even if you are just practicing on your trainer hand, you always want to make sure that you're staying in that routine, doing all of the different steps that you would do on a real person. You want to make sure that you're doing those on your trainer hand. So that way when you actually do get into working on a real person, then you're not going to forget those steps. And a lot of times things like protein bond, if you skip working with the protein bond on your trainer hand, you're gonna forget to do that when you're actually working on a real person, and then you're gonna have issues with your nails lifting or separating and things like that. So I always recommend making sure that when you are practicing, you're practicing exactly how you would do your application on a real person. So we're gonna switch our sanding band here, and I've got the Mandrel on our E-file. Now the Mandrel is something that you would want to sanitize and disinfect. So that is a metal implement. So always make sure that you are sanitizing and disinfecting that in between each person. Whether it's a client or even on yourself, it's always a good idea to sanitize and disinfect that. But you should also be changing out your sanding band. Now, whether you are a nail tech in salon or you're a DIYer, you're doing your own nails, doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, you always want to make sure that you are changing out that sanding band, so you always have a good one that has the proper grit to it. If you're reusing an old sanding band over and over and over, it's going to start to wear down and it's not going to do the job that it needs to do. So always make sure that you change that out to a new one. Now we're going to start by removing the shine from that nail. And I'm just going to work on, I've got my E-file here on about 5,000 RPMs. I'm going to go through and do just short little strokes all the way around the cuticle area. I'm not going to try to come in, let me see if I can get a little closer for you guys there. I'm not going to try to come through that nail all in one swipe. I don't necessarily need to go all the way around that cuticle just in one motion. Working in those smaller, just little almost feathering strokes all the way through there, that's going to help you get that perfect, not really an application, but perfect file all the way around. Once you get to that corner, then you're going to do, basically you're going to go from the top left corner up here down to the bottom right. So you're going diagonally down that nail. We're not going across the nail this way. we're going across the nail this way. The reason for that, when we go through and feather and remove the shine, if we're working at a diagonal, there's less chance that that bit is going to wrap around the finger. If you're working from side to side, chances are you're going to come off the edge and it can catch right on the side on the skin like that, and that's where you tend to get that wrap around. So if you're staying at that diagonal, there's a lot less chance that that bit is going to wrap around or catch on that side or catch on that cuticle. So make sure that you are fully removing the shine all the way through. If you need to touch up those edges, I've got just a little bit more right through here. Just want to go through and feather that out, making sure to remove the shine. Now what we're doing when we remove the shine is basically breaking up the surface oils on that nail. We're not trying to file off that nail plate. We're not trying to grind it away. All we're trying to do is basically break up those surface oils on the nail. Then we can go through and dust off any dust, and then we'll come back in with our swipe. Now swipe is our cleanser, and we're going to pump a little bit of that onto our manicure brush. You could use the lint-free wipes. You could use one of these lint-free wipes, pump that on there, and then go in and cleanse the nail. But I personally like to use the manicure brush because I feel like the manicure brush, it's still going to go through and remove any of those last little tiny pieces of dust on there, but it's also going to keep you from touching that swipe. Now, swipe is a little bit of a dehydrator, so it is going to help to pull the surface oils off the nail. So if I'm constantly touching that lint-free wipe with the swipe on it, you're going to start to see, let me dry my hand, you're going to see that my skin does start to get dried out. So that's why I like to use the brush rather than the wipes, because I can go through without getting that swipe on my hand and drying out my skin. Now, can I put cuticle oil on here and rehydrate? Yes. So it's not something that is going to really damage your skin, but it is going to leave it dry for a little bit. So that's why I like to use the manicure brush to dust off the nail and then cleanse with the swipe. Swipe is also going to help with the germs and bacteria. So it's going to clean off that nail. It's going to give us a really nice, clean, dry, germ-free surface so that when we do apply our acrylic, our hard gel, our gel polishes, whatever you're putting over the top of this, it's going to be that really nice, clean, dry surface. All right, after we do, whoops, sorry guys, just bumped my camera there. After we do our swipe and we cleanse the nail, we're going to use our bonder. Now, with Young Nails products, we don't use a primer. Protein Bond is not a primer. It is a bonder. So how this works is more like a double-sided tape. So once I brush this on there, it's going to leave a sticky surface. It's sticking down to that natural nail, but it's going to leave that sticky surface, and that sticky surface is what's going to really grab onto any product that we put over the top of this. So again, it works like a double-sided tape. If you want to think about it like an anchor, it's going to sit down onto that nail and then it's going to grab onto whatever else you put on top. Now, when we're doing a full set of either acrylics or hard gels, and we're doing a hard gel nail today, I always do 2 coats for those full sets, just to make sure I get really good coverage, really good adhesion all the way through that whole entire nail. So you can see that once we put that Protein Bond on, you're going to have that sticky surface. It's not going to dry back to that chalky, dry look anymore. You want to make sure that it does look sticky like this. And I always tell people, if you've gone through, say you went through and you prepped the nail and it looks dull and kind of that dry look, that means that you didn't put Protein Bond. So if you didn't put the Protein Bond on. So if you notice that you're about to apply your acrylic or your hard gel and it looks dry and chalky and it doesn't look like sticky like this, that means that you didn't put your Protein Bond on. So make sure that you get that Protein Bond on before your product application. All right, let me find my forms here. So we are going to sculpt our nail today. We're not using tips. I know, like I said earlier, we've been using a lot of tips lately, and I love the tips, but there's still a process for the old school sculpting. And so we're gonna take our form, I'm gonna peel that off the backing. I'm gonna take that little tab out of the center, and we're going to just stick that right on the back. Now, does that YN have to be perfect on there? No. Does it have to be the shiny side up? No. You can put the sticky side up. You can, however you need to put that on there, just make sure that you put that little tab on the back. because what that's going to do is it's going to give your form a little bit more durability. So it's going to feel a little bit more firm rather than, I would say, like a loose feeling. So again, it's going to give that form a little bit more stability. Now we're going to take our form, we're going to pinch together those two little silver tabs right at the end. And I want to make sure that I'm pinching those together as evenly as I can get them so that our nail is going to end up straight instead of lopsided. So take a second, you don't have to rush this step, but take a second to really make sure that those tabs are together nice and even and they're not going to be lopsided. All right, you guys, what shape should we do today? Let me know in the chat. Should we do a coffin shape? Should we do a stiletto? Should we do an almond shape? Let me know. Let me know in the chat, because you guys, now that I can actually see my chat again, I want to know what you guys are thinking. I love to see. So let me know. All right, Sandra says almond. So we might do an almond, but you guys, I need to see coffin, coffee, not coffee. We had coffee earlier today. Coffin, stiletto, almond, coffin, coffin. Okay, so I think a lot of you are asking for a coffin, and I think that's probably not one of the shapes that I do a lot of. I do tend to do a lot more of the almond and stiletto shape. So we'll switch it up and we'll do a coffin shape for you. So for a coffin shape, you see that I did open up that top perforation. For me, that helps a little bit to be able to get that onto the nail. And I'll show you guys that in just a second. But when we're doing a coffin shape nail, you want to make sure that you are, let me come a little closer here. You want to make sure that you are pinching that form at the end. You don't want to leave that end open, because we want to make sure that as we're putting our form on and as we're applying our product, we're going to be able to bring that nail more tapered. And let me show you on another form here. If we only pinch just those silver tabs together and we leave that end open, that's going to give you a more square nail. So again, if we just pinch those two tabs together and I leave that end open, you can see that there's going to be more of a tube. So kind of more of a straight form. So again, if you are making and creating a longer or a square nail, those square nails need that end open to get the proper shaping. When you're working and doing either a stiletto or a coffin shape nail, you want to make sure that you are pinching that form tight at the end so you can get that form nice and tapered and you can get that extension nice and tapered. So again, for a square nail, you want to keep it open at the end. For even an almond shape or a stiletto or a coffin, pinch that together at the end. So a couple of different ways of working with your forms. Now you guys, I'm seeing a lot of new people in our chat here, a lot of new people joining us today. Make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Get all of this free education. You guys, who doesn't love free education, right? So make sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get our form onto the nail. Now I'm going to show you this from the side view, and I'm going to hold my form a little bit differently than when I work on a real person, just so I can show you from the side. And then I'll show you from the front view so that you can see exactly how to do this. But as you're putting your form on, what you want to do, you don't want to just try to shove that form up underneath that nail. What's going to happen is a lot of times you're going to catch on that skin, or you could end up poking into the client's hyponychium. If you don't know what the hyponychium is, you guys, let me see. You can kind of see, and don't judge my nails, you guys. My nails are in desperate need of a fill here, desperate need of maintenance. But if you look underneath my nail here, you can see this skin right here, that is my hyponychium. So the hyponychium is really the skin that connects that nail bed to that natural nail. Now on my nail, the hyponychium has actually grown out. If you take a look on this one, my hyponychium has not grown out. It's all the way back down underneath that nail. On this one, it has grown out. So I have to be very careful, and we do have some videos on how to customize your forms. So if you do have that extended hyponychium, you can customize your form to make sure that you're not poking in there. But if I were to just take that form and just shove that right up underneath my nail, that's actually going to poke down into my hyponychium, and it's going to be sore and painful, and because it's very tender skin. So when you're putting your forms on, you don't want to just shove them right underneath there. You want to start at a slight downward angle, just tuck that right up underneath the nail, and then lift up at the end. Let me turn this so you guys can see. So again, start at a downward angle, bring that up underneath the nail, lift up, and then it's going to come flush right up underneath that free edge. So now our form is going to be coming nice and straight out from that nail, and it's not going to be poking too far underneath there, okay? So let me come back here and I'll show you. This is how I would put a form on a real client. Come back in here. Actually, let me come out just a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to hold my form on the sides. You could still hold it from that end point if that's easier for you. Whatever's easier for you, whatever gives you a little bit more control, you can hold that way. But for me, I like to hold on the sides here, and then I stabilize my client's finger with, I'm actually using my middle and my ring finger. So I stabilize their finger here, come up at that slight angle, catch that free edge right up underneath there, lift up on the end, and then secure my form on the sides. So this way, everything is going to come nice and straight out. You can see that form is coming straight out from that nail. It's not angled downward, it's not angled upward, just nice and straight out. Now, one thing I'm going to show you here, let's come back in, is if we take a look at this form, there we go. Do you see how wide it looks right through here? If we're creating a long, narrow stiletto or a long, narrow coffin, which is what we're going to be doing today, I don't want this form wide on the side. So I'm going to pinch that right underneath there, and just pinching that together underneath is going to really narrow in our nail. It doesn't look like I did a whole lot of work on that, but just that tiny little bit of a pinch to just bring those edges in a little bit, that's going to give our nail a lot more of a narrow taper to it, okay? All right, we got our prep done, we've got our form on there, we are ready to get into some product. And again, you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button before I actually get into our nail. All right, let me just shift here real quick. So I'm going to show you what colors or what gels I'm going to be working with today, and then we'll actually get into our application. So we've got, first things first, are our base gels. So I've got our concealer pink base, because I'm going to be working with my concealer pink sculpting gel, and that's going to be over the natural nail area. So I like to use my pink base with my concealer pink gel. It's just going to give you more solid coverage all the way through the nail. Now, you could still use your clear base, and that would be totally fine too. So if you don't have the concealer pink base, you can always use the clear base. But when I'm using the concealer pink gels, I do like to have the concealer pink base, just so I don't have that extra layer of clear underneath. But either way, whatever color you're using, you want to make sure that you are using the base as the first layer on your natural nail. Okay, so those are some of the colors I'm going to use. I'm also going to be working with our clear Sculptor and our Build Pink. Now these are all in our precision applicator tubes. You can apply them directly from the tubes. The gels in the pots, those you are going to need a gel brush to work with. So something like this one. This one is our master gel brush. And we have a bunch of other brushes, whatever works for you, but this is the one that I'm going to be working with today. Okay? We're also going to be using some glitters. Let me see if I can find those. And the glitters that I've got today, we're going to be doing an Easter kind of a nail. So just an Easter springy nail, but purple does tend to be a color that everybody associates with Easter. So that's what we're going to be working with today. So the colors that we've got are Shock, we've got Purple Dawn, we've got Lavender, and we've got Me on a Sky. And then we also have this one just has a little bit of a purple tint to it. It's going to be just adding sparkle. And this one is called Entry Level. Now you guys, if you're noticing on my containers, some of them are larger, some of them are smaller. The larger sizes, this is the size that we currently carry. The smaller sizes are our old packaging, but you guys, your glitters don't go bad. These will last you a long time. So if you still have the old packaging, don't worry, your glitters are fine to use still. It's just now they come in the larger size. And something else that you guys are probably noticing on my jars here is here in our classroom, we've gone through and just numbered all of them. So it just helps with inventory. So if you are somebody who needs to keep track of inventory, it's a quick, easy way so that you can have maybe an itemized list of all of your glitters so that if you're missing one from your shelf, you can see exactly what color that is. So just a little thing that I like to do so that I know what glitters are on my shelf and maybe what's missing or maybe whatever I need to replace. So just something else you can do if you're in salon or if you need to take inventory. And then one other thing that we've got, this is banana strawberry. And this is one of our mylars. So this is not technically a glitter. It's just larger pieces of mylar. So you can see just a little bit. Let me come in nice and close on that one. So you can see it's chunkier pieces, but the mylar really has a beautiful glow to it. So when you're working with these on the nail, it's just going to shine. It's going to give you a lot of depth when you're building a dimensional nail. So we're going to also be adding that in. Now I know this one's not purple, but I still felt like it was kind of a good Eastery color. All right, so those are the colors and the products that I'm going to be working with. Let me set some things off to the side here, and we will get into our application. And there we go. So what I'm going to start with is just building out my extension. Now, I know I said that you always want to start with your base gel on the natural nail, and we are going to start with base on the natural nail, but I am going to build out my extension first of all in Clear Sculptor. So Clear Sculptor is a thicker building gel. It's called Sculptor for a reason because it really works well to sculpt out your enhancements. So I'm going to start by just squeezing a little bit of that Clear Sculptor right in front of that natural nail. I'm going to stop squeezing. So I just squeezed a little bit onto there. When you're building out your extension, you don't need to use a lot of product. You don't want to create a very thick extension. So just a little bit is going to go a long way. Now, I'm not squeezing any more product as I'm working here at this point. All I'm doing is using that nozzle to bring that product all the way up to the corners of that nail. And then I'm going to start to feather that down the length of the nail, building out again a very thin extension. Now I'm getting to a point where I feel like I'm running out of gel, so I'll squeeze a little bit more of that, not a lot, but just a little bit at a time. Again, bringing that out to the sides and then feathering that down the length of the nail. So you're really using the nozzle like you would use your brush. So if you choose to use your brush, you can definitely do that as well. It's personal preference, whichever works easier for you. A lot of times I do use both. You guys, I'm sorry I keep bumping my camera today. What I'm going to do, I've got a ceramic tile. So I like to have a ceramic tile when I'm working with my gels and my gel brush especially, because this way I've got a little palette to either wipe my brush on if I have too much product or clean my brush out if I need to. I'm just going to use a little bit of swipe or polish remover or acetone, just making sure that my tile is nice and clean. But again, I can use my brush just like I was using the nozzle, and I can use my brush to just move that product or touch up any edges or clean any edges up. Let me bring this in a little bit closer here for you guys. And let me grab my hand in here. There we go. So I'm going to come in from the sides. Now you can start to see, now that we're up nice and close, you can see right in here that that edge of my gel is not very even. So I'm going to wipe out my brush, make sure my brush is nice and clean. I'm going to use the edge of my brush, and you can either pull that forward, or I'm actually going to turn my brush around and I'm going to just basically draw that line of gel all the way back up into my side. Now notice I didn't brush it up onto the skin. I'm using the edge of my brush as a barrier, and I'm just bringing that right up onto that natural nail. If you do get any product on the skin, I'm not finding my orange wood stick here, but make sure that you grab an orange wood stick, or I'm even going to use the other end of my, my magic wand here to just make sure if you do accidentally get any product on the skin, make sure that you do clean that off right away so that that product isn't sitting on your client's skin, okay? All right, I'm gonna clean my brush out. I'm gonna do that same thing on the other side, straightening out that lower arch, straightening out that edge. And I know I said we're gonna do a coffin shape, and you could come back through, clean up that edge a little bit, square it off a little bit. But honestly, you guys, I don't spend a lot of time doing that because once I have this cured out and our nail is done, I'm gonna just use my electric file and I'm going to clean that off with my electric file. So at this point, we're gonna get this into our light. We're gonna cure this for a minimum of 30 seconds. So when you're working with your gels, you can do basically layer by layer, freezing it into place when you're working with clear gels. If you're working with a more solid color, then I would make sure to fully cure it. So say if you're using maybe the white Sculptor or something like that, I would go into the light for a full 60 seconds to cure it. But as you're layering in your clear gels, they will continue to cure as you are working layer by layer. So that's been in there almost 40 seconds, so we're good to go on our next layer. So at this point, our free edge is set, but it's not fully cured all the way through. It's set enough to where we can go on to our next layer. And our next layer is going to be our concealer pink base. So like I was talking about earlier, you always want to make sure that you're working with the base on that natural nail as your first layer. Now, base is designed to have the best bond to that natural nail, so that's why you always want to make sure that you are starting with the base. If you go right into any of your sculpting gels on that natural nail, you may not have the best adhesion. So always start with your base gel. And all I'm doing is brushing on a nice thin layer of this. Now notice again, let me see if I can come a little closer. Oops. There we go. As I'm applying my base, what I'm doing is I tend to start a little ways away from the cuticle area, and then I work back towards that cuticle. So this way I'm not gonna flood product up into that cuticle area. I'm not gonna have too thick of an application in that cuticle area. Same thing as what I was doing with my protein bond. I start a little ways away and then work back to that cuticle so that, again, you're not gonna get product on the skin, you're not gonna flood product anywhere. And, excuse me. I'm just going through, feathering that out, and I may just blend that right off the edge just to barely connect that natural nail to our extension, okay? So again, a really thin layer of that. We're gonna go back into our light. We're gonna freeze that again for another 30 seconds. And then we will go on to our nail. So what we're gonna put on this nail is a really pretty, just a fairly easy, I know I always say an easy ombre for Easter. So say that 5 times fast. Easy ombre for Easter. Or just spring if you're not an Easter person. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab all of those different glitters that I was showing you earlier. And we're also going to be using the Build Pink. Now where did I put my Build Pink? Okay, so the Build Pink in the tube. I'm gonna squeeze out, you guys hang on a second. I'm gonna readjust my camera just so I don't keep bumping that on you. All right, hopefully that's gonna be a little bit better. There we go. I think that's gonna look good. So I'm gonna start with my Build Pink gel, and we're gonna squeeze some of this onto our tile. So we're actually going to be mixing a custom color. So squeeze a good amount of that onto our tile, and you wanna make sure that you're mixing enough for your full set. So however many nails you're creating, you wanna make sure that you have enough of your glitter mix so that you don't have to try to go back and remix, because once you've custom mixed these colors, it's really hard to get the perfect mix again. So always make sure that you've got enough product for your full set. So all of our purple glitters that we've got here, we're gonna add in a little bit of each, and I'm just gonna sprinkle those right on top of my gel. So just a little bit of each, and you guys don't try to be too skimpy with these. I know a lot of times people think, oh, you're wasting glitter. No, you guys, you're not wasting glitter, okay? You would rather have more glitter in there and have to add a little bit more gel than having not enough glitter. Because if you don't mix enough glitter in, your color isn't going to be very solid and it's going to look more like salt and pepper in your gel. So make sure that you are adding a good amount of the glitters. Again, if you need to add more gel, and I think I'm probably going to need to add more gel into this, but it's okay. You can always add more gel. I mean, you could always add more glitter too, you know, whatever you want your nails to look like. But then I'm going to take my spatula and I'm just going to press that glitter down into the gel, and then I'll start to smooth that. And this is really going to combine all of that glitter into your gel. Now you have to really gauge your mixture here to see, does it have too much glitter? I know, I always question, is there really such a thing as too much glitter? But yes, when you're working with gels, there can be such a thing as too much glitter. Now I think right now, let me show you this up close a little bit. I think my consistency is pretty good because you can see that it's not looking chunky. It still looks like it does tend to self-level just a little bit. You can see it's just moving a little bit and softening a little bit. If I tilt that on the side, again, you can see it starts to flow. So if you look really closely, it's starting to flow. That's telling me that I have a good amount of glitter in there. I've got that really good consistent color all the way through, but it's not so much glitter to where my gel feels chunky. You want to make sure that it still has a little bit of that self-leveling property to it. So again, if I press that up, it's going to just soften a little bit. It's not going to feel chunky or sandy or grainy. So again, it's going to be nice and smooth. So just check your consistencies. And then we are going to take our nail that is already cured out. So now our free edge has been in there for 2 cycles of 30 seconds. Our nail bed area, it's actually, I think, been in there for a full 60 seconds. But a lot of times I just freeze that base on the nail bed. And at this point, our free edge is completely cured out. So we can remove our form. So I'm just going to pinch my form together underneath and making sure that the form completely releases from the gel. I don't want to pull my form off if the gel is still adhered to that form. So sometimes you can see I was using my nail. Sometimes I'll go back in with my magic wand, that cuticle pusher tool that I was using, just to make sure that everything has separated, and then I'll be able to take that form off. And you do have to be a little bit on the gentle side when you're removing that form. Otherwise, there's a chance that you could end up cracking that extension off. You guys can see that this nail at this point is very thin. So there's not really anything holding it together very well. So again, you have to be gentle so that you're not going to break that tip off or that form off at the extension, or the extension off at the natural nail. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to go back to our brush here. And I'm going to clean my brush out because I've got a little bit of that a little bit of that concealer pink base in there. So I want to make sure that's nice and clean. And then I'm going to take a little scoop of my gel. So that glitter gel mixture that we created, I'm going to pick a little bit of that up. And I'm going to set that right down just at my free edge. So I'm going to set that down, put a little bit of pressure with my brush, and then I give it just a little bit of a bounce, and you'll see that it starts to help release that product from the brush. So I'm going to take that brush, I'm going to swirl this in circular motions, and I'm working out to the side. So when I work out to my right side, I work in a clockwise motion. When I work to my left side, I work in a counterclockwise motion. Now you guys, I know everybody's got the digital clocks and the watches and everything. We don't really see a lot of clock faces anymore, but if you don't know what I mean by clockwise and counterclockwise, to the left side you're circling to the left, to the right side you're circling to the right. That's going to push your gel to that edge and you're going to get a really nice clean application. So I'm going to just start to work that down the length of the nail and just feathering or pulling, but floating my brush over the top. I'm not putting pressure and actually brushing. I'm keeping my brush on the surface. Let me come in a little closer so you can see that. Oops. There we go. So I keep my brush on the surface of my product. I don't put a lot of pressure. If I put pressure, it's going to smooth that product out too much, and I'm not going to get that good solid coverage. So make sure that you're using a little bit of more of like a floating technique, staying on the surface, and just guiding that product down the length of the nail so that we've got good coverage all the way through that whole nail. Once we get to the end, I'm going to kind of touch up my edges here just a little bit. Make sure that I've got product all the way down the sides where I need it. Making sure I've got good coverage. Now at this point, I'm going to clean out my brush. So I'm going to wipe a little bit of that gel out. I'm going to turn my brush around and I'm going to feather out the back. So just blending out the back of that glitter. I don't want that solid line of my glitter, and you'll see what happens when we do our next step. You'll see what can happen if you do leave that solid line of glitter. What you're going to end up seeing is that solid line, and it's not going to blend and it's not going to ombre very well. So we want to make sure that I'm kind of tapping through this, just making sure that my glitter is really well blended out. So you guys, you could actually leave the nail with a design just like this, but we're going to go ahead and cure this, and then we're going to do an ombre over the top. So that's going to go into the light for about a 30-second freeze. And there we go, we got that in the light. I'm hoping I didn't bump that as that went into the light. All right, I think we're good in there. So again, that is going to go into our light for 30 seconds. And while that's curing, I'm going to grab my mylar. So that mylar, like I was showing you guys earlier, is a little bit of a thicker product, a chunkier product. So what I like to do with this is I'll take just a little bit out of there and I'll just run it through my fingers, and this helps to break those pieces apart. So this way I can really pick and choose and add in whichever pieces I want. So there's going to be some pieces that are a little bit larger. There's going to be some pieces that are smaller. The one that I'm using here, this one is called Banana Strawberry. So it does have a little bit of that yellow and a little bit of that pink to it. So I can pick and choose which colors I want to put into my nail. I can pick and choose which pieces I want to apply. So it really is allowing me to create a really custom look on the nail. Now, how I'm going to apply this is into our base gel. Now I know we were talking about the base gel being what you're going to use on that natural nail, but we can also use this to layer in our design. And especially when you're working with mylars and things like that, you want to have a gel that's going to be nice and thin so that you don't build up extra bulk when you're adding your layers in. So I'm going to take a little bit of my base gel. Again, I'm going to clean out my brush here really quick. I'm going to take a little bit of that base. I'm going to brush that onto just the area that I want to apply my mylar. So just right through that purple, and then I can use my brush. So again, clean out my brush, clean that gel out of there. So I can either use my brush or I can use an orange wood stick or something like that to just touch those little pieces of mylar. Let's come in nice and close for you guys. I always love to be able to see that mylar up close because you really get that shine with it. All right, you guys, let me readjust here. There we go. Okay. So again, you can pick and choose and find whichever pieces you want to set down in there. If you want larger chunks, you can pick larger chunks. If you want little smaller pieces to fill in space. So just setting all of those tiny little pieces in there, creating the color that you like. And notice that as I work, especially when I'm working with mylar, I rotate the finger a little bit here and there, just moving that so I can see exactly how the light is going to reflect on those pieces of mylar. So this way I can really just judge and gauge where I want to add more color. If I want to brighten it up with more of that yellow tone, I can add a little more of that yellow in there. If I want a little bit more of that pink, I can add pink. So just setting these pieces down into that wet uncured gel. Now I'm not putting my glitter, my mylar all the way back up into that blended area because we're going to cover this with our pink, and I just want my mylar right down on the end. So just little bits and pieces all the way down on the end, And once you have your color set in there how you like it, go ahead and cure that. So again, I think I like how that's looking. We're going to get that back into our light for another 30 seconds, freezing that into place. And then we will build up the body of our nail using our, let me find it here, using our concealer pink. So again, we're working with one of the Precision Applicator tubes. And I really love the tubes because I really feel like they're a great way for especially beginners to apply their product. So if you're a beginner, this is a great way for you to start and to learn how to use the product. But even if you are a seasoned pro, it still is a great technique. And for me, it's a really quick and easy technique. So I think our nail has been in there for 30 seconds. And I still want to have my tile here just in case I need to clean out my brush. Now we're going to create an ombre. So we're going to blend our concealer pink into our glitter. So we're going to squeeze a good amount of that product right at the cuticle area. And just like I was using my brush, I'm going to use circular motions to move that product around my cuticle area. So again, clockwise around the right side, counterclockwise to the left. I'm going to need a little bit more of that gel, so squeeze a little bit more out. And I'm just going to start to build my structure. I think I need just a little bit more here, so squeeze a little. And notice that as I squeeze product out, I'm working in the center of the nail. I generally don't squeeze the product when I'm at the sides because that's when it's going to tend to flow a little bit more and run down the sides of your nail. So squeeze your product from the center, work it out to the sides. And this is also going to help me to build my proper arch and apex. Now you can see I've got a good amount of thickness on there at this point. I think I'm going to bring just a little more back. Again, you guys, floating over the surface. I'm not putting a lot of pressure onto this. And I think we're going to stop right there. I'm going to go back to my brush. Again, clean out my brush, make sure I don't have any glitter or anything stuck in there. I actually might need to use a lint-free wipe at this point to just clean that out, make sure there's no glitter or anything on there. I'm going to come back to my nail here. And guys, I think I need to tighten one of my attachments here. I think my camera keeps sliding down. All right, I think we're good there. Let's come in nice and close. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to just touch up around my edges, making sure that my product is close enough to my cuticle area, around my sides, make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to use my brush to feather out just the edge. There was a little tiny air bubble in there. I made sure to pop that and just blending out that edge, feathering that out so that it's going to just look like it's melting into my, my purple glitter. So just feathering that out. And again, this is why we faded all of that purple back so that we don't see a stark straight line of that purple glitter when we do our ombre. So again, just blending that out. And I think I like how that is looking, maybe just a little bit more blended. And again, you guys, feathering and floating. That's what you really have to remember when you're working with gels. You don't want to use too much pressure. You don't want to be too heavy-handed with this, because if you work too heavy-handed, you're going to pull all of your product away and it's not going to create the proper structure that you need. Okay, I think we are good. Just want to blend out that line just a little bit more. And again, just barely touching some of these areas to blend those out. Okay, I think I'm liking that. We're going to get that back into the light for another 30-second freeze. Now, I'm going to show you guys this when the nail comes back out of the light, but we don't have the proper structure at this point. So we do need to add a little bit more product over the top. And we're going to go back to our clear Sculptor. And the clear Sculptor is what we're going to build up the rest of the structure with. So again, set off my tile to the side here. We've got our hand in the light. Again, that's going to be for a 30-second freeze. And again, just enough time to set that product into place so that we can work on top of it. All right, so again, our nail is set, but it's not fully cured into place. If you look from the side, you can see we definitely have a drop down where we need to fill in space. So we're going to come back in here. We're going to start squeezing a little bit of that clear Sculptor. Now I don't need to cap the whole entire nail. All I need to cap is basically from our arch, from that highest point, so back through right here, forward to just build up the proper structure. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit of that product out. There's a couple of little air bubbles in here. I want to make sure that I pop those before I cure this. But again, just blending and guiding that product down the length of the nail. And we'll squeeze out a little bit more just to make sure we've got enough to cover all the way through. And a lot of times I do this section in layers. So I may add a thin layer of the clear Sculptor at this point, get it into shape, and then freeze it into place in the light. And then I may add a little bit more, just depending on if I need more structure, if I need more thickness anywhere, I can always add. So don't ever be afraid to add more product if you need to create your proper structure. Oops, sorry guys. I think we're good there. Again, I'm going to just set this into the light for maybe, I don't know, maybe on this one, maybe we'll go, I don't know, like 10 to 20 seconds or so, just so that I can really see the structure, see exactly where I need product, if I need product, but just enough so that it stops the product from moving. Because gels are a little bit self-leveling, and especially the ones that I'm working with today, they are self-leveling, so they can move a little bit on you. So that's why I like to get it into the light. Now you can see here that I still have a little bit of a drop down right through here, but I think when I do my filing, I'm going to end up filing out a little bit of the thickness right through here, so I don't think I really need to add any more product. I think when I do file, it's going to be okay. But you guys, now that I'm looking a little bit more, I think maybe I'll add just a tiny little bit more, just right through here, to make sure that my arch is going to flow nice and evenly. I'm going to blend that back into what I've got, turn my brush forward again, and then just blend that edge out. So I think this is going to help my product flow a little bit better. So at this point, I'm going to go back into my light, and this time we're going to put that in there for a full 60-second cure. Okay, so I know we've been going for 30 seconds for each layer. At this point, we want to make sure that everything is completely cured. So we're going to put that in there for a full 60 seconds. Okay, now in the meantime, I am going to close up all of my tubes here. I like to use a lint-free wipe and go through, clean off those nozzles, just make sure everything is nice and clean, and then make sure to put your caps back on so that nothing squeezes out while you're doing your filing and finishing or anything like that. So make sure to clean everything up. And again, this is a good time because your nails need to be in that light for the full 60 seconds. And unless you're working on the other hand, you don't really have anything else to do. So just make sure that you've got the hand in the light and it's going to cure fully. Clean up your station, and then by the time we are done cleaning, that's usually the right amount of time for the nail to cure. And look at that, it was. Now at this point, the nail's completely cured out, but it does have a tacky surface to it. So we're going to use our swipe. I'm going to pump a little bit of that onto my wipe. Now earlier I was showing you guys how to use the swipe with the manicure brush. At this point, I do need to use that lint-free wipe instead of the manicure brush because I need to really make sure that that tacky finish gets cleansed off. So I'm going to give that a nice quick wipe. Actually, I do kind of a couple of wipes really to make sure that that nail is nice and clean and that there's no more tacky surface to it. So we're going to start with our E-file, and I'm going to switch our bit. So earlier we were using that sanding band. I'm going to switch to my, let's see, normally I would use my X-cut, but I'm not seeing my, whoops, I'm not seeing my X-cut bit here. So I'm going to grab my safety bit. So the safety bit and the X-cut bit are basically the same bit. It's just that the safety bit has the rounded top to it, and the X-cut is going to have more of a flat top like this one. okay? So safety bit is great if you are a beginner or if you're not super comfortable just yet with your e-filing skills. But the safety bit is great for really anybody. You know, if you're a seasoned pro or if you are a newbie to e-filing, it's a great bit to use. So I'm gonna start with that. Let's come in, see if we can get a little closer there. So I'm gonna turn my e-file up to about, I would say between 14 to 16,000 RPMs. And we're gonna start by filing our perimeter. So the perimeter is our sides and our free edge. So all the way around the edges here. Now, earlier I was showing you guys if you needed to, you could come back through with your gel brush and clean up that free edge. And I said I don't generally do that because I usually take that down with the e-file. This is exactly how I'm going to do that. I'm going to use my bit, and if we look from the side, we're going to be at an angle just like this. So I'm not completely 90 degrees to that nail, just slightly tapered underneath it. Okay, so we're going to come across the nail. And I'm using about this section of my bit. So from the middle towards the base of the bit. I'm not using the tip of the bit up here. I'm going to get a little bit better pressure. So from the middle straight over. Okay, so just right across that free edge, tapering that in. And this is how, if you want to shorten that up, you can shorten that up a little bit more. Just take a little bit more off. Okay. I'm going to taper in our sides. We're going to come straight down on our left side, and then we're going to push straight back on our right side. And you always want to be working against the rotation of the bit. That's why we're going straight down on the left and pushing back on the right, because I'm going against the rotation of the bit. If I were to come straight down on this side, that's going with the rotation of the bit, and it's not actually going to remove any product. So always keep in mind that your bit you should feel a little bit of resistance, okay? So we're going to taper that in just a little bit more here. Take those sides in. I'm going to turn that nail on the side. We're going to clean up our lower arch here, and we don't have a ton to do, but I'm just going to push straight back in so that that product is coming straight out from that cuticle all the way straight down through that extension. And again, just pushing back. Now sometimes with that safety bit, because it's got that rounded top, you're not going to be able to get in as close into those sidewalls as you might be able to with that X-cut bit. But again, for a beginner, it's going to work great. Okay, I'm going to turn this on the side here. We're going to pull straight down on this side, again making sure that that lower arch is coming all the way straight out from that natural nail. All right, let's take a turn here. I'm going to work up around my cuticle area, thinning and tapering that cuticle area, and then we're going to work just down the arch of the nail. So we're going to come right down the center out to the side. I'm not coming all the way across from side to side, and I am looking from the view that you guys are seeing. So exactly what you're seeing, that's what I'm seeing. All right? From this view, I can see the arch of my nail. I can see that shape of the nail. And I want to make sure that I'm nice and thin and tapered back at my cuticle area, a little bit thicker right through my stress area, and then nice and tapered down to my free edge. So that's really what I'm looking for when I'm working from this angle. So really putting in that arch. And yes, somebody in the chat is reminding me my dust collector. You guys, I totally spaced that out, and I'm so glad that you reminded me because yes, I need my dust collector. All right. Let's see if we can, I'm just going to come back out just a little bit. There we go. So let's turn on our dust collector, keep all of that dust out of there. I don't know what I was thinking on that. So you guys definitely use your dust collectors, keep that dust out of your breathing zone, keep that dust out of your eyes, out of your nose, all of that stuff. So make sure, use a good dust collector. And you guys, everything that I'm using here is Young Nails. This is our Young Nails dust collector. So everything that I'm using here you can find on our website, youngnails.com. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, get all the free education. Take advantage of it, you guys. Definitely take advantage of it. All right, so after I cleaned up my arch, I'm now looking straight down the barrel of the nail and basically pulling my bit all the way through from, not quite from cuticle area, but I would say probably from the arch area forward. to really make sure that everything is contoured and rounded out and about the same thickness all the way through. Okay, I do tend to look one more time from that side view once I taper down that down the barrel, just to really make sure that my arch is still where I need it and where I want it. I'm going to go right up around my cuticle area just one more time to really make sure everything is nice and flush, and I think we're good to go. Now, you could go right into your hand file, but I'm going to switch over back to that sanding band. So the same sanding band that we used to prep those natural nails, I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to turn my speed down on my E-file to, I would say, probably about 6,000 or 7,000 RPMs. I like to use my sanding band right up around that cuticle area, so again, I can get flush right down to that natural nail so that I don't have a ledge in the back. Because you guys, clients tend to pick at that ledge. I tend to pick at that ledge if I have a ledge on my own nails. So you want to make sure that you're getting that nice and flush down to that natural nail. And then I go through those same motions really just to refine everything. So I try to do the majority of my filing with my electric file versus with my hand file. So it's just much easier on my body, it's much easier on my hands, my wrists, my arms, my shoulders, all of that. It's much easier to do with my electric file than it is to do everything by hand. So just going through again those same motions, making sure everything is as contoured and tapered and as perfect as I can get it. And then we will finish this nail with our hand file. You guys make sure when you grab a new hand file that you always take a prep file. I always have an extra file that I use just for prepping my files, and go through and remove those sharp edges. Make sure that you don't have any sharp edges that you might end up cutting your client with. Both sides, so top side and bottom side here, and I just go flat across the top and then angle that slightly so that I'm really just catching that corner right through there. So making sure that I don't have any sharp edges. And then we're going to go through and pretty much cover all of those same areas that we did with the E-file. We're going to start on our perimeter, so our sides. We're going to straighten out our sides. So right side, left side. Again, straighten everything out. We're going to straighten out our free edge. We're going to straighten out our lower arches, so coming in through our lower arch, making sure that, again, that is coming straight out from that natural nail. And it is okay to turn your client on the side like this. This is actually how I would file a real person. Making sure to turn that hand on the side so that you can tell if that extension is coming straight out from their natural nail. Okay? So we've got our perimeter. We're going to go back through. We're going to taper right up around that cuticle area, along those side walls, rounding in. So when I'm filing on my sides like this, you guys, I'm not just filing flat, I'm actually curving my file. So again, not flat, curving. And that's what's going to help you to get that really nice rounded taper all the way through your sides here. So you're not going to end up with a square edge and then a rounded top. Everything is going to flow and blend together. Same thing on this side, rounding. So rounding all the way through instead of just filing flat. Okay? All right, you guys. Looks like we got some hearts in the chat. Looks like you guys are enjoying today's lesson. Again, make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Keep enjoying our lessons. We do go live here usually about 3 times a week. So make sure to set your notifications so that you know when we do go live. So I'm just going through and just tapering a few other odds and ends here, looking from all different angles. I look from my side view, look from my other side view to make sure that everything is nice and straight. And the last way that I will look at this nail is from the client's perspective. I want to make sure that I'm seeing what she's going to see when she goes home. And I want to make sure that everything is shaped perfectly, and this is really the best way to check. So I'm checking my sidewalls, make sure my sidewalls are nice and straight, make sure that free edge is nice and straight. And then I'm gonna look backwards. Let me see if I can adjust. There we go. So I'm gonna look backwards down the nail, and then I'm gonna blend from this direction. And I'm gonna flow all the way from one side, all the way up and over. And this is, again, how I'm gonna get that really nice taper and that really smooth finish. If you just go through and just kind of do choppy, I call them pecking strokes, you're just pecking at the nail, you're not gonna get a smooth finish. But if you flow that file all the way through, that's how you're gonna get that really nice, smooth finish, okay? And I think we are about there. So those of you that have been in our YouTube community for a while, you know what time it is. It is top coat time. If you don't know what time it is, make sure to hit subscribe first, but then you can join in our top coat chant in the chat, and we'll finish up our nail. So at this time, when we do our little top coat chant, we're ready to do our top coat, we're ready to finish this nail. So I'm gonna go through, let me come in nice and close so you can see how we're finishing this. So I'm gonna dust off that nail again. Oops, get that little hair off of there. And underneath the nail as well, so clean off that nail as well. We're gonna go back to our swipe, so that same product that we were using to cleanse the nails prior, we're gonna use that on our manicure brush. We're gonna cleanse all the way through that beautiful nail, cleanse off all of that dust. We're gonna go back to our protein bond one more time. We're gonna apply a coat of protein bond. Now I do wanna make sure that my nail is nice and dry before I do that. So we're gonna wait just another second. I may grab one of my lint-free wipes here just to make sure that's nice and dry. All right, you guys, I love to see that top coat chant in the chat. So if you're new, make sure to join in on our little chant in the chat and have some fun today. So I am gonna apply one more coat of my protein bond all the way through this nail. Now notice that we didn't do any buffing. And the reason is because if we try to do too smooth of a finish, our top coat is gonna have a harder time adhering. So we don't actually go through and buff. All we need to do is apply a coat of the protein bond, and then we can go right into our top coat. And today I'm using our ultimate finish. I know you guys, if you've been with us for a little while, you know that I absolutely love the ultimate finish top coat because it is a quick and easy top coat. It is a tack-free finish, so once you cure this out, there is no tacky surface to cleanse. Once it's cured, it is cured and it is done and ready to go. So one nice even coat all the way through the whole nail. And then you want to make sure that you're putting this into the light for a full 60-second cure. So 60 seconds is going to be our full cure. You guys, I've got to shift some things here. But I'm usually putting the nail into the light for 20 to 30 seconds or so, and then I'll show you the final look so that you guys don't have to wait the whole minute to see the final look. But you do want to make sure, if you are working with that ultimate finish top coat, do make sure that you put that in there for the full 60 seconds to cure it all the way through, okay? And looks like we've been in there for just about 20 seconds. So I'm gonna pull that out. I will finish curing this afterwards, but I'm just gonna come in nice and close so you guys can see our beautiful Easter ombre. So if you are celebrating Easter this year, this is going to be a great color combination and a great look for you. If you just like spring nails, it's going to be a great look for you as well. So you guys, hopefully you will try out this design. Hopefully you'll try out this color combination. And if you do, make sure to post it on your social media. Make sure to tag Young Nails so that we can see how you are creating our inspiration. And you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, join our community, and we will see you guys back next time. Thanks, everybody.